Hello, my dear listeners. Before we begin today's story, I'd like to send a special hug to 3 listeners who are always leaving kind comments here. Nancy Palomo from Paris, Joan Groark from Ireland, and Cathay from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, USA. It's such a joy to have you here with us. And what about you? Where are you listening from? Let me know in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories are reaching. And who knows? Maybe your name will be featured in the next video too. Now then, let's begin today's story. The office was invisible by design. No brass plaques, no street-level windows. Just a discreet door on the 3rd floor of an unremarkable building, marked only with the number 312. Inside, Helena Adams sat across from a woman who radiated wealth like perfume, expensive and impossible to ignore. Evelyn Kingsley wore her worry like couture. Designer suit, flawless makeup, hands that trembled just slightly as she placed a photograph on the desk between them. "This is my son, Julian." Helena studied the image. Dark brown hair, dark brown eyes that held something guarded. Handsome in a way that suggested he didn't care whether anyone noticed. Standing alone at what looked like a corporate event, surrounded by people but utterly separate. "He's 35 years old," Evelyn continued, her voice catching. "And he's alone, always alone. He works 18-hour days, 7 days a week. He hasn't brought anyone home for dinner in years. He hasn't smiled, really smiled, in longer than I can remember." Helena kept her expression neutral, professional. This was her job after all. Compatibility Connections specialized in a service most people didn't know existed. They didn't just match couples. They created connections where none existed, manufactured chemistry, engineered love, or at least the appearance of it. "Mrs. Kingsley," Helena said carefully, "what exactly are you hoping I can do?" The older woman's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "I want my son to remember what it feels like to want something besides work. I want him to open his heart again, even if it's just a crack. I'm not asking you to marry him, Miss Adams. I'm asking you to show him that he can still feel." Helena should have said no, should have explained that this particular request crossed too many lines. But there was something in Evelyn's desperation that resonated in a place Helena tried hard to keep locked. She knew what it was like to be alone, to build walls so high that no one could scale them, to forget what it felt like to let someone in. "Tell me about him," Helena said instead. Evelyn's relief was palpable. She leaned forward, pulling out a folder thick with information. "He's brilliant, built his tech company from nothing. He's generous, though he hides it, donates anonymously to causes he believes in. He loves classical music, though he hasn't been to a concert in years. He runs every morning at 6, drinks his coffee black, reads philosophy before bed." Helena took notes. Detailed notes. This was the part she was good at. The research, the analysis, building a profile like a detective hunting a suspect. She'd been good at it for 5 years now, ever since she'd left the foster system with nothing but a sharp mind and a talent for reading people. She'd learned early that survival meant adaptation, that love was a performance, and she could play any role required. She'd never failed an assignment. "I'll take the case," Helena said. Evelyn's hand covered hers, warm, grateful. "Thank you. Thank you so much." After the woman left, Helena sat alone in the quiet office, staring at Julian Kingsley's photograph. There was something in those dark eyes, something wounded and wary. She recognized it because she saw it in her own mirror every morning. Over the next 2 weeks, Helena became an expert on Julian Kingsley. She learned his routines with the precision of a surveillance operative. Morning runs through Central Park, always the same route. Coffee from the corner shop on Madison, always at 7:15. Lunch at his desk, dinner meetings that ran late, home by 10 if he was lucky. She studied his company's history, read every interview he'd ever given, watched footage of his presentations, noting the way he commanded a room without seeming to try, learned that he valued intelligence over beauty, substance over style, Honesty above all else. That last one made her stomach twist. She researched his interests: classical composers, Dostoevsky and Camus, wine from small Italian vineyards, art galleries on rainy Sundays. By the end of week 2, she knew Julian Kingsley better than most people knew their closest friends. Now came the hard part, making it look like fate. Helena stood outside the coffee shop on Madison Avenue at 7:12 on a Monday morning. She wore simple jeans and a cream sweater, her blonde hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. Natural makeup, no designer labels, nothing that screamed effort. She'd learned that men like Julian noticed women who didn't try too hard, women who seemed comfortable in their own skin. At 7:14, she walked into the shop, ordered a black coffee, no sugar, pulled out a worn copy of The Brothers Karamazov, and sat at a table near the window. At 7:15 exactly, Julian Kingsley walked through the door. Helena didn't look up, didn't acknowledge him, just turned a page and took a sip of her coffee, perfectly absorbed in her book. She felt rather than saw him notice her, felt his gaze pause on the book in her hands, felt the moment of recognition, however brief. He ordered his coffee, left, didn't approach. Good. This was a long game, not a sprint. She returned the next morning, same time, same table, different book. Crime and Punishment this time. Julian arrived, ordered. This time his eyes lingered a fraction longer on her book. The third morning she switched to a philosophy text, Camus, The Stranger. This time when Julian received his coffee, he paused by her table. That's an interesting choice for morning reading. His voice was deeper than she'd expected, warmer. Helena looked up, letting surprise cross her face, as if she hadn't orchestrated this exact moment. I find Camus oddly comforting with coffee. The absurdity of existence pairs well with caffeine. A smile ghosted across his lips. Small, fleeting, but real. I've never thought of it that way. Most people haven't. She closed the book, marking her page with care. Most people find him depressing. Are you most people? Helena met his dark brown eyes, let herself smile. I try not to be. He stood there for a moment, coffee in hand, as if deciding something. Then he extended his hand. Julian. Helena. Her hand slipped into his. Warm. Firm. The contact sent an electric current up her arm that she told herself was just good acting. It had to be acting. Do you come here often? He winced immediately. Sorry. That sounded like a terrible pickup line. Helena laughed, genuine and surprised. It did. But I'll forgive you since you have good taste in literature. How do you know I have good taste in literature? You recognized Camus at 20 feet. That says something. That almost smile again. Stronger this time. I run past here every morning and stop for coffee. I've never seen you before. I just moved to the neighborhood. The lie came easily. She'd been practicing it for 2 weeks. Fresh start and all that. Something flickered in his eyes. Understanding, maybe. Fresh starts are underrated. Or overrated, depending on your perspective. Julian tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. You're interesting, Helena. You say that like it's a surprise. It is. He glanced at his watch, hesitated. I have to get to work, but maybe I'll see you tomorrow. Maybe. She picked up her book again. If the universe is feeling generous. He left, and Helena let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Stage 1. Complete. Contact established. Interest sparked. The hook set. Now came the careful work of reeling him in without letting him feel the line. But as she sat there, coffee cooling in her hand, she couldn't shake the memory of his almost smile, or the way it had made something in her chest feel dangerously close to hope. 3 weeks of careful orchestration followed. Helena became a fixture in Julian's world without ever seeming to try. She showed up at the coffee shop 4 mornings a week. Never 5, never predictable. Always absorbed in a book he'd likely appreciate, always leaving before he could suggest they sit together. She wanted him curious, interested, chasing. On Friday of week 1, she, accidentally, ended up at the same art gallery he visited, stood before a Rothko painting for 20 minutes, genuinely moved by the layered colors, when she felt his presence behind her. "You see it too." His voice was quiet, reverent. "See what?" Helena didn't turn around. The violence beneath the beauty. The way he makes chaos look like peace. She glanced at him then, found him staring at the painting with an expression of such raw longing that something in her chest cracked. "Is that what you see? Violence? Isn't that what we all are underneath?" Julian's dark eyes met hers. Chaos pretending to be order? Helena should have had a clever response, something flirty and light. Instead, she found herself saying, "Maybe some of us are order pretending to be chaos. Maybe the violence is in the pretending." He studied her face like she was a painting he couldn't quite decipher. "That's a lonely way to live." "You say that like you don't know exactly what I mean." His jaw tightened. For a moment she thought she'd pushed too far. Then that almost smile appeared. "Would you like to get coffee? Real coffee? Not the corner shop version?" This was it. The first real invitation. The moment where casual became intentional. "I'd like that," Helena said. They went to a small cafe 3 blocks away, sat across from each other in a corner booth. And for 2 hours, Helena played her role perfectly. She mirrored his body language, laughed at his dry humor, asked questions that made him feel heard, seen, understood. She revealed carefully curated truths about herself. The foster system, yes, but framed as something that made her strong rather than broken. Her work at the consulting firm, vague enough to avoid suspicion. Her love of literature and art and all the things she'd researched he valued. She was perfect, and Julian was falling for it. She could see it in the way his shoulders relaxed as they talked, the way his smiles came easier, the way he looked at her like she was water and he'd been dying of thirst. But something strange was happening. She was enjoying this. Not the conquest, not the successful execution of her plan, but him. The way his eyes lit up when he talked about a new algorithm his team had cracked. The way he listened, really listened when she spoke. The way he was brilliant and lonely and trying so hard not to show it. "I should go," Julian said reluctantly as the cafe began to close. "But I'd like to see you again, if you're interested." Helena hesitated just long enough to seem genuine. "I'm interested." He smiled, a real smile this time, full and unguarded. "Friday? Dinner?" "Friday," she agreed. He walked her to her subway stop, stood there awkwardly, hands in his pockets, like a teenager on a first date. "I'm not very good at this," he admitted. "It's been a while." "Good at what?" "Dating. Connecting. Any of it." Helena reached out, touched his arm lightly. "You're doing fine, Julian." He looked at her hand on his arm like it was something precious, something fragile. "Good night, Helena." "Good night." She descended into the subway, and only when she was alone in the crowd did she let herself acknowledge the truth. This was getting complicated. The weeks that followed blurred together in a series of carefully planned, spontaneous encounters. Helena engineered their meeting at his favorite wine bar, made sure to be reading his favorite poet when he arrived. Wore amber, the scent his research suggested he found most appealing on women. Laughed at his jokes and challenged his opinions, and made him work just hard enough to keep him interested. She was a master craftsman, and Julian Kingsley was her finest work. But with each conversation, each shared meal, each moment of genuine connection, Helena felt the walls she'd built around herself beginning to crack. Julian was nothing like she'd expected. She'd prepared herself for a spoiled rich man, arrogant and entitled. Instead, she found someone who donated anonymously to children's charities, who remembered the names of servers and doormen, who worked himself to exhaustion not for greed, but because he genuinely believed his technology could help people. He was kind, genuinely, deeply kind, and so heartbreakingly lonely. They'd been seeing each other for 6 weeks when he finally told her about his company. Not bragging, not trying to impress. Just sharing a part of his life over dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant she'd learned was his favorite. "It's not just about profit," he said, gesturing with his wine glass. "The software we're developing could revolutionize how rural communities access medical care. Telemedicine that actually works. That actually helps people who can't get to a hospital." Helena watched him, this man who pretended not to care about anything, pour passion into describing technology that would save lives. "That's beautiful, Julian." He looked embarrassed. "It's just business." "No." She leaned forward, caught his hand. "It's not. You're trying to make the world better. That's not just business." His fingers tightened around hers. "Most people don't see it that way. Most people are idiots." He laughed, actually laughed. The sound was rich and surprised and utterly genuine. "You're something else, Helena Adams." "Is that a good thing?" "It's the best thing." His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "I haven't felt this way in a very long time." Her heart stuttered. "What way?" "Like maybe I'm not as alone as I thought." The words hit her like a physical blow, because she felt it too. This impossible, inconvenient thing growing between them. This connection that wasn't supposed to be real. "Julian," she started, but he leaned forward, his eyes searching hers. "Can I tell you something? Something I don't talk about?" "Of course." He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. 10 years ago, I was in love. Really, truly in love. Her name was Sarah. We were going to get married." Helena's chest tightened. This wasn't in the research. This was something deeper. Something real. "What happened?" she asked softly. "Car accident." The words came out flat, emotionless, the only way he could say them. "I was driving. We were on our way to look at wedding venues. A drunk driver ran a red light. I survived. She didn't." Helena's hand covered his. "Julian, I'm so sorry. I couldn't save her." His voice cracked. "She was right there and I couldn't do anything. And then she was gone. It wasn't your fault, wasn't it?" He pulled his hand away. "I was driving. I should have seen the other car. Should have done something. Should have—" "Stop." Helena moved to his side of the booth, took his face in her hands. "It wasn't your fault. Grief doesn't require blame, Julian. It just requires time." He stared at her, eyes bright with unshed tears. "How do you know that?" "Because I've spent my whole life blaming myself for things I couldn't control, for being abandoned, for ending up in foster care, for never being chosen." The truth spilled out before she could stop it. But eventually, I had to accept that some things just are. Some pain doesn't have a purpose. It just is. Julian's hands came up to cover hers. "You were chosen, Helena. I choose you." And then he kissed her. It was soft, tentative, achingly sweet. And in that moment, with his lips on hers and his pain tangling with her own, Helena felt something inside her shatter. This wasn't part of the plan. This was real. When they pulled apart, Julian rested his forehead against hers. "I haven't let anyone in since Sarah. I tried a few times, but all I found were women who saw dollar signs instead of a person. Women who wanted what I had, not who I was." His words were knives, each one cutting deeper. "But you," he continued, his voice a whisper. "You see me, the real me. I don't know how to explain it, but with you, I don't feel alone anymore." Helena closed her eyes. Let guilt wash over her like ice water, because he was wrong. She didn't see him. She saw what she'd been paid to see. She'd orchestrated every moment, every connection, every feeling he thought was spontaneous. She was exactly like the women he'd described. Worse even, because at least they'd been honest about their motives. "Helena?" His voice pulled her back. "Are you okay?" She opened her eyes, found him watching her with such tenderness that it physically hurt. "I'm fine, just overwhelmed." "Good overwhelmed or bad overwhelmed?" "I'm not sure yet." He smiled, kissed her forehead. "That's honest. I like that about you. You're always honest." The words were acid on her skin. They left the restaurant hand in hand. Julian walked her home, his arm around her waist like she was something precious. At her door, he kissed her again. Deeper this time, more certain. "I'll call you tomorrow," he murmured against her lips. "I'd like that." She watched him walk away, his hands in his pockets, his shoulders straighter than she'd ever seen them. Inside her apartment, Helena collapsed against the door. What had she done? She'd set out to make a lonely man fall in love. Mission accomplished. He was falling, maybe had already fallen, but so had she. And when he found out the truth, when not if, because secrets like this never stayed buried, it would destroy him. It would destroy them both. Helena pulled out her phone, stared at Evelyn Kingsley's number. She should call. Should explain that this had gone too far. Should return the money and walk away before anyone got hurt. But her finger hovered over the screen, unable to press call. Because walking away meant never seeing Julian again, never hearing his laugh, never feeling his arms around her, never being the person he thought she was, the person she desperately wanted to be. She set the phone down, pressed her hands to her face. Tomorrow. She'd figure it out tomorrow. Tonight she'd let herself pretend just a little longer that this was real, that she was the woman Julian Kingsley thought he'd chosen. That love, for once in her carefully constructed life, wasn't just another performance. 2 months became 3, and Helena found herself drowning in the beautiful lie she'd created. Julian introduced her to his life piece by Careful Peace, his favorite bookstore where he spent Saturday afternoons, the small jazz club where he went to think, the rooftop garden where he ran when Central Park felt too crowded. Each place he shared felt like a gift, like trust. And with each gift, Helena's guilt grew heavier. They fell into a rhythm that felt dangerously close to real. Morning texts that made her smile before she was fully awake. Lunch breaks stolen between meetings. Dinners that stretched into evenings, evenings that stretched into nights. He was careful with her, respectful, never pushed for more than she was ready to give. And somehow, that made it worse, because it would be easier if he were the arrogant billionaire she'd expected. Easier to lie to someone who deserved it. But Julian deserved better than her. "My grandmother wants to meet you," he said one evening, his voice casual but his eyes uncertain. They were in his apartment, a penthouse that somehow managed to feel more like a home than a showpiece. Books everywhere, plants that someone actually watered, furniture that invited you to sit rather than just look. Helena's heart kicked against her ribs. "Your grandmother?" "Rose. She's 93 and terrifying in the best way." His smile was soft. "She raised me after my father died, taught me everything important. Meeting family." This was a line she'd never crossed in an assignment, a line she shouldn't cross now. "Julian, I don't know if that's... She already knows about you." He took her hand. "I might have mentioned that I've met someone special, and she demanded to meet you before, and I quote, I kicked the bucket and missed my chance." Helena couldn't help but laugh. "She sounds intense." "She is, but she'll love you." His thumb traced patterns on her wrist. "Everyone loves you." The words should have felt like victory. Instead, they felt like accusation. "When?" Helena heard herself ask. "Sunday? Lunch at her place. Fair warning, she'll ask inappropriate questions and judge your posture." "Sounds delightful." "It will be." He pulled her closer. "Because you'll be there." Sunday arrived with the weight of inevitability. Helena dressed carefully, conservative but not stuffy, elegant but not trying too hard. She was playing to an audience of one, and everything she'd learned suggested Rose Kingsley saw through pretense like glass. Julian picked her up at 11, nervous in a way she'd never seen him. He adjusted his tie 3 times in the elevator, checked his hair in the lobby mirror, reached for her hand like he needed the anchor. "She's going to love you," Helena said, squeezing his fingers. "Or she'll see right through this and tell me I'm an idiot." Helena's stomach dropped. "See through what?" "How completely gone I am for you." He stopped, turned to face her. "Helena, I know it's only been a few months. I know we should probably take this slower. But I need you to know. I'm falling in love with you." The words hung in the air between them. Beautiful. Devastating. True. "Julian, you don't have to say it back." He cupped her face gently. "I just needed you to know. Because I haven't felt this way since Sarah. And I'm terrified, but I'm also so grateful that you wandered into that coffee shop and reminded me what it feels like to be alive." Helena kissed him rather than speak. Kissed him like she could pour everything she felt into the contact. All the guilt and longing and impossible want. When they pulled apart, his eyes were soft. "Come on. Let's go meet the woman who taught me how to love in the first place." Rose Kingsley lived in a brownstone in Brooklyn that smelled like lavender and old books. She opened the door herself, a tiny woman with white hair and eyes exactly like Julian's, sharp and knowing. "So you're the one who put the light back in my grandson's eyes." Her voice was raspy but strong. "Come in, child. Let me look at you properly." Helena stepped inside, and those dark eyes swept over her with the precision of a surgeon. "Good posture. That's something. Pretty but not vain. Interesting." Rose turned to Julian. "Where did you find her?" "Coffee shop. She was reading Camus." "Ha, a thinker. Much better than those painted dolls you used to bring around." She gestured toward the living room. "Sit. I've made lunch. And before you ask, Julian, yes, I did it myself. I'm 93, not dead." Lunch was intimate and terrifying. Rose asked questions that seemed casual but weren't. Where Helena grew up, what she did for work, what she valued in life. Helena answered with carefully crafted truths. The foster system, yes. Consulting work, vague but plausible. Values of honesty and kindness and loyalty. The irony wasn't lost on her, but something strange happened as the meal progressed. Rose wasn't interrogating her. She was seeing her. Really seeing her. Past the performance Helena had perfected. "You've been hurt," Rose said suddenly, setting down her fork. "Someone taught you that love is dangerous." Helena's breath caught. "I don't deny it. I can see it in your eyes. That wariness, that wall." The old woman's gaze softened. "But you're here anyway. That takes courage." "Grandmother," Julian started, but Rose waved him off. "Hush, I'm talking to Helena." She leaned forward. "Here's what I want you to know, child. My grandson has the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known, and it's been broken badly, first by death, then by cruelty disguised as affection." "I know," Helena whispered. "Do you?" Rose's eyes bored into hers. "Because the way you look at him tells me you do. The way you touch him, like he's something precious. The way you listen when he speaks, like his words matter." She reached across the table, covered Helena's hand with her own. "You love him." It wasn't a question. Helena felt tears prick her eyes. "Yes." "Then don't waste it. Don't let fear make you stupid." Rose squeezed her hand. "I've lived 93 years, and I'll tell you the secret to life. Love is terrifying and messy, and often hurts like hell. But it's also the only thing that makes any of this worthwhile." After lunch, Julian walked Helena through Rose's garden, while his grandmother napped. The September air was crisp, leaves just beginning to turn. "She likes you," Julian said, pulling Helena against his side. "I can tell." "How?" "She didn't interrogate you about your intentions or warn me about moving too fast. That's her version of a blessing." Helena rested her head on his shoulder. "She's remarkable." "She is." He was quiet for a moment. "After Sarah died, Rose was the one who kept me human, who made sure I didn't disappear completely into work, who reminded me that pain doesn't last forever." "Did she know Sarah?" "She loved her, which made it worse in a way. Losing her meant watching Rose grieve too. Watching everyone I loved hurt because of what happened." Helena turned to face him. "Julian, you have to forgive yourself. That accident wasn't your fault." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I know you. You're the man who works 18-hour days to create technology that helps people, who donates anonymously because you don't need recognition, who held my hand through a panic attack last week and never asked for an explanation." Her voice cracked. "You're good, Julian. All the way through. And good people don't deserve to carry guilt that isn't theirs." He stared at her like she'd just handed him something he'd been searching for his entire life. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "Make me believe I'm better than I think I am." "I'm just telling you what I see." Julian pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. "I love you, Helena Adams. I know I already said it, but I need to say it again. I love you, completely, terrifyingly, without reservation." Helena closed her eyes. Let herself feel the warmth of his arms, the steady beat of his heart against her cheek, the impossible rightness of this moment. "I love you too," she whispered. And it was true. Every word. She loved him, which made what she'd done unforgivable. That night, alone in her apartment, Helena made a decision. She had to tell him the truth, not because it was the right thing to do, though it was, but because he deserved to know who he'd fallen in love with, deserved to make his own choice with all the information, even if that choice meant losing him forever. She'd go to his apartment tomorrow. She'd tell him everything. About Evelyn hiring her, about the research and the orchestration and the careful manipulation of every moment. She'd tell him that it started as a job but became something real, that she'd fallen in love with him despite every intention not to. And then she'd walk away, give him space to process, to decide if any of this could be salvaged. Her phone rang. Julian's name lit up the screen. "Hey," she answered, her voice thick. "Hey yourself. I know it's late, but I couldn't sleep without hearing your voice." Helena's chest ached. "Julian, Rose called after you left. She wanted me to know that she thinks you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Her exact words were, 'Don't be an idiot. Marry that girl before someone with sense steals her.'" Helena laughed despite the tears now streaming down her face. "She's very direct." "She is. But she's also never wrong." He paused. "Helena, I know this is fast. I know we're still figuring things out. But I need you to know, you're it for me. I don't know how I got this lucky finding you in that coffee shop, but I'm not letting you go. Julian, there's something I need to tell you. Tomorrow, whatever it is, tell me tomorrow. Right now, I just want to fall asleep thinking about how lucky I am." Helena closed her eyes. "Okay. Tomorrow. Good night, love." "Good night." She hung up and stared at the phone in her hand. Tomorrow, she'd tell him everything. Tomorrow, she'd break both their hearts. But tonight, just for tonight, she'd let herself believe the beautiful lie just a little longer. Helena woke Tuesday morning with the weight of confession pressing against her chest like a stone. Today. She would tell him today. She dressed in jeans and a simple sweater. No armor, no performance. Just herself, stripped of all the careful construction. The subway ride to Julian's penthouse felt like traveling to her own execution. She'd rehearsed the words 1,000 times. "Julian, I need to tell you something. Julian, this started as something else. Julian, I was hired by your mother. None of them felt adequate. By the time she reached his building, her hands were shaking. The doorman recognized her now, smiled warmly. "Good morning, Miss Adams. Mr. Kingsley expecting you?" "I'm surprising him," Helena said. The truth and a lie in the same breath. "He's home. 23rd floor." The elevator ride took forever, and no time at all. Her reflection in the mirrored walls showed a woman pale with fear, eyes too bright, throat working against tears that wanted to fall. She knocked on Julian's door. Once. Twice. No answer. Helena frowned. His car was in the garage. The doorman said he was home. She tried the handle. It opened, unlocked. Unusual for Julian, who was meticulous about security. "Julian?" Her voice echoed in the hallway. "It's me." Silence. Helena stepped inside, her heart beginning to race. Something felt wrong. The air was too still, too heavy. She moved through the living room, the kitchen, all empty. Then she saw it. The door to his study, half open, light spilling out. "Julian?" She pushed the door wider and froze. Julian sat in his desk chair, turned toward the window. A glass of whiskey in his hand, the bottle half empty beside him. His hair was disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it for hours. His shirt was wrinkled, untucked. But it was his eyes that stopped her breath. Red-rimmed, swollen, destroyed. "Julian." Helena moved toward him. "What happened? Are you okay?" He didn't look at her, just stared at the amber liquid in his glass like it held answers he desperately needed. "When were you going to tell me?" His voice was flat, emotionless, worse than anger. Helena's blood turned to ice. "Tell you what?" "Don't." The word came out sharp. He finally looked at her, and the pain in his eyes nearly brought her to her knees. "Don't lie to me. Not now. Not after everything." Her mouth went dry. "Julian, I don't... When were you going to tell me?" The explosion of sound made her flinch. Julian surged to his feet, the whiskey sloshing in his glass. "When were you going to tell me that this whole thing has been a lie? That you were hired to manipulate me? That every moment, every conversation, every touch was just part of the job?" Helena felt the world tilt beneath her. "How did you—" "My mother." His laugh was bitter, broken. "She came here this morning, crying. Said she couldn't live with the guilt anymore. That she needed to tell me the truth before things went any further." He set the glass down with trembling hands, turned to face her fully, and the devastation in his expression made Helena want to die. "She told me everything, Helena. Everything. How she hired you. How you researched me like I was a case study. How you engineered every accidental meeting. How you became exactly the woman I would fall for." "Julian, please let me explain." "Explain what?" His voice dropped to a whisper. Somehow that was worse than the shouting. "Explain how you made me fall in love with someone who doesn't even exist. Explain how you listened to me talk about Sarah, about my pain, about how I'd been hurt by women who only wanted my money, and you were doing the exact same thing. It's not like that. Then what is it like?" He moved closer, and she could smell the whiskey on his breath, see the barely contained anguish in every line of his body. "Tell me, Helena. What was I? A project? A challenge? How much did she pay you to make the broken billionaire feel something again?" Tears streamed down Helena's face. "It started that way. But Julian, that's not what it became. I fell in love with you. Really fell in love with you." "When?" The question was a knife. "When did you fall in love with me? After you'd already learned everything about me? After you'd already orchestrated our entire relationship? How do I know any of it was real?" "The kiss," Helena said desperately. "That first kiss in the restaurant. That was real. Everything after that was real." "Was it?" Julian's voice cracked. "Or was that just part of the performance? Did you practice that too? Figure out exactly how to kiss me to make me fall harder?" "No." She reached for him, but he stepped back. Julian, please. I know I was wrong. I know I should have told you sooner. But what I feel for you is real. I swear to you, it's real. He stared at her, and she watched him try to believe. Watched him want to believe. Watched hope and doubt war across his face. My mother came here in tears, he said quietly. Told me she'd made a terrible mistake. That she'd only wanted to help me, to see me happy again. She never meant for it to go this far. Never meant for me to actually fall in love. His hand came up, hovering near her face like he wanted to touch her but couldn't quite manage it. She said you were a good person, that you genuinely cared about me. But Helena, how can I believe that? How can I trust anything about this? Because I'm here. Helena grabbed his hand, pressed it to her cheek. I came here this morning to tell you the truth, to confess everything, because I couldn't live with the lie anymore. Convenient timing. But his thumb stroked her cheek, betraying him. My mother tells me first, and suddenly you were planning to confess? I was. I swear I was. Last night on the phone I tried to tell you, but you said tomorrow and I... Her voice broke. Julian, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He closed his eyes. The woman I fell in love with, did she ever exist? She exists. Helena's voice was raw. She's me, the real me. Everything I told you about my past, about foster care, about feeling alone, that was all true. The only lie was how we met. The only lie? He pulled his hand away. Helena, you constructed our entire relationship. You became exactly who I would love. How is that only anything? Because the person I became is who I really am. The words tore out of her. You want to know the truth? Fine. Here it is. I've spent my whole life playing roles, being what people needed me to be, because that's how you survive when no one ever chose you for yourself. She was crying harder now, but she didn't care. But with you, I stopped playing. I stopped performing, because you saw me, the real me, and you loved her anyway. And that terrified me more than any lie I've ever told. Julian's jaw worked. She could see him struggling, wanting to believe her, wanting to forgive. I love you, Helena whispered. I love you so much it hurts, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I broke something precious, but please believe that what we have is real. For a moment, just a moment, she thought he might reach for her, might pull her close and tell her they'd figure it out. Instead, he turned away. Get out. His voice was dead, empty. Julian, get out, Helena. He moved to the window, his back to her. I can't look at you right now. I can't hear your voice. I can't think straight with you here. Please don't do this. Let me stay. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. He finally looked at her, and the coldness in his eyes made her stagger. You were hired to make me fall in love. Congratulations. You succeeded. Now leave. Helena took a step toward him. Julian, I love you. Don't. The word was a roar. Don't you dare say that to me. Get out of my apartment. Get out of my life. Just go. She tried one more time. Moved to embrace him, to make him feel what she felt. He caught her wrists, held her away from him, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet, final, devastating. Leave, now, before I say something we'll both regret. Helena stumbled backward. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare